Okay. Today we want to discuss about one of the very real and problematic issues in creating and managing the change. Also, we can see this problem in our daily behaviors. For example, when you want to reduce your weight or gain weight sometimes, you will have a lot of trials, a lot of efforts, changing your eating behaviors, more exercises, and finally, you will lose some, for example, kilograms or some pounds. And after sometimes, it is called in psychotherapy, it is called relapse. Relapse, it is repeat again, the same wrong models of behavior. And you will go to the past and sometimes wrong and undesirable patterns of behavior, of thinking, of emotions. It is called sustainability of change. It is very important because change is not easy. After creating change, we need some procedures, we need some methods to maintain the change we have created with a lot of efforts, with a lot of problems, with a lot of difficulties. And we talked about the difficulties to create a change also in organization, also in human beings. Now, in this one of the second final chapters of the book, we are talking about sustaining change versus initiative decay. Initiative decay is meant after creating some changes, some initiations you want in your life, in your organization, after sometimes yet that you see that the decay is coming and you will destroy, and sometimes other factors will destroy the change that you have created. At first, I want you to have some brainstorming about this. How do you think about the decay of initiatives or decay of changes? Why changes sometimes are not sustainable? Why we cannot maintain the changes we have created in our lifestyle, in our organizations, in our departments, and other parts we want to create change? Why we cannot continue the change? How do you think? Is there anybody here to have such an experience creating a change with a lot of efforts in his or her life? And after sometimes he or she sees that, sorry, I cannot keep the change I have created with a lot of efforts. I'm losing the changing stage and I'm going back to the primary state before creating the change. Is there anybody here to have such an experience? I have a lot of this experience in my real life. Yes, Kenneth.
Um, so for me, I play for the Miramar basketball team out in
Mm-hmm.
LA, and so it's kind of like one of those things for me. Like if I don't practice every day or practice on most days outside of the team practice, then I won't get better. I'll just be just as good as anybody else, or I will just be like the average
Mm-hmm.
person trying to play basketball. And when you want better for yourself and you want more, you want to put in the work constantly to make the change.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's part of it.
And after that, you lose your practice after sometimes or not. You keep the physical fitness. You lost your practices after sometimes.
Oh,
Extra practices that you did for overcoming the differences between you and other players. You had a lot of extra practices to create the power you need to overcome the distances between you and other players. And after sometimes you lose your daily habit of practicing. Why? how did you think about your practices? Did you think that it is enough? It is good now? Good now? No, I am tired for extra practices. There is no necessity for doing anything extra. How did you think about yourself or about your actions?
Oh, I just hold myself to a standard. Like usually, you know what's enough and you know what's not enough. So when you hold yourself to a standard and it's not even just the amount of time you put into it, it's like what you do within the time that's necessary. So as long as I'm maximizing my time, uh, I know if I'm pretty effective or not. It shows when it's time to put it to the test.
But you continue to keeping your muscle shape or not? You lose your muscle shape.
I continue to keep my shape.
So it is not that the matter I was talking, because you have continued to shaping your muscles, not more shaping, but the same shaping. You have continued to keep it at the same size and the same shape. But sometimes we go back, relapses means we go back to the primary. For example, if you were under the standard of other players for playing in a good team, you were under the standards of the team, and you try and you try and you try to going up to reach the standard level, and after that try and try to go upper the standard level. When you lose it, you go down, go down, go down, or go down again to the under the standard level. But you have continued to keeping the final muscle shape you have created, but and don't lose it, but not trying to do other things. Okay, anybody else? Thank you. Anybody else? Hi, David, welcome. Other things.
I think all for unforeseen circumstances, sometimes we make plans for something and we have it all figured out, but there are things that happen that we can't control, like external factors that happen you can't control, and then you have to go back and maybe readjust it or completely cancel the whole plans that you've made for something and start again. So definitely all unforeseen circumstances or external factors that affect our plans.
Anticipated, yes. One of the greatest skills you should know as a manager, as a leader, is strategic thinking. The strategic thinking includes participation and anticipation. Participation in what are anticipated. For example, you see the future, you have a good plan for your organization, for your private, personal life, and other things, everything you want to manage or handle or leading. So when you want to anticipate and after that participate in what is in the future, a lot of factors you don't have any news, any information about it. It is correct, out of your control. But you think that some of the out of the control factors are not here. It is assumed that you live in a controllable environment. If it is a conditional controllable environment and everything you are doing is on your hand and you can do it everything you want, what are your personal character, personal personality traits that can damage the change you have created as a person, not as an organization? Is there any personal feature? Is there any personal trait to damage or to relapse or to go back to the primary stage of change, or no? For
Um,
example, procrastination,
Procrastination on
yes,
it.
laziness, greed. Greed is very important factor. Why? Greed is when you have come so late and you want to go out so fast, gaining faster and faster and faster. It is the game of greed. Fear of success, fear of failure, and tiredness, and exhaustion, frustration. These are the personal character trait, personal personality traits that can damage the change was created by you. Okay. Learning objectives. of this chapter is images of managing and sustaining change, threat to sustainability, praiseworthy and blameworthy failures, actions to sustain change, and words of warning. At first, again, I want to review the 6 images of change manager. First, Kenneth. Can you call me the name of the 6 images of change managers? How many images do you remember? Wayne, what about you? I don't ask question, Luisa, but I know because I know Luisa knows everything about it. Wayne, the name, only the name, not description.
Nurturer.
Nurturer, thanks. Anybody? Nurturer,
Coach.
coach,
Coach, director, notes,
director, okay.
Interpreter.
Navigator, okay.
navigator.
Caretaker.
Yeah, take it and
Interpreter.
interpret. Okay. And 2 aspects. One aspect controlling and creating, shaping, and other aspect is intentional, full intended, semi-intended, and unintended. Okay. In the view of the sustaining change, a director thinks that it is responsibility of the change manager to design the change process and direct people to accomplish such that the change objective is achieved as planned. A director think like this about change sustainability. But a navigator, a change manager who wants to control the present behaviors, partially intended, think that the change manager designed the change process so as the best fit the conditions faced, recognizing that modifications will almost certainly need to be made en route and the final outcome may not be as originally envisaged. And finally, the caretaker, a change manager who wants to control the behaviors unintended. He or she think to the extent to which intended outcomes are achieved, this is primarily the result of environmental factors, not management intervention. You know, caretaker wants to keep and control the present situation fully unintended. So they think it is not related to the managerial interventions to sustain the change. It is related, absolute related to the external factors, to the environmental factors. On the other parts, we have some change managers who wants to shape and create new behaviors, new methods, intentionally, unintended, semi-intended, someone who wants to do it fully intended, he, she, or she is called coach. If intended outcomes are achieved, it is because the change manager has been successful in helping organizational members develop within themselves the capability necessary for success. Coaching, interpreting, and nurturing is about shaping and creating ability and capability and features and behaviors. But interpreter thinks the change manager plays a central role in the development of an understanding of the meaning of outcomes. We talked about it in the previous sessions. An interpreter is someone who wants to give sense to things. He or she is sense giving, creating meaning for the changes. In particular, with regard to what is taken as successful resolution of the change process. And finally, the passive creator, the passive shaper of abilities is nurturer. Change processes will have outcomes, but these are in continual state of flux and are largely out of the hands of manager. As you see, caretakers and nurturers are so passive. Because of that, we call them unintended change managers. Sustaining change. Once implemented a change, change is not always embedded in an organization. it is not going to the context as a habitual behaviors, as routine behaviors, routine procedures, routine methods of an organization. If it has become a routine procedure in an organization, it is not change, it is embedded in an organization. The ability to make the change stick indicates the long-term success of the change. There are a number of actions that can help sustain change. We are talking about the actions, about the limitations, about the causes of failure of change sustainability, not the failure of change. It is called the improvement evaporation effect. Evaporation is just something like vapor. It is going out to the air. It is evaporation. There is a false assumption. If changes have been successful, they will automatically be sustained. It is false. Why? Because when a change is successful, it doesn't indicate to the sustainability. Sustainability is something else. It needs to have some sustainability creating factors in the future of an organization. Without that, we cannot create anything for sustain the changes in our organization. In reality is for the change manager, sustaining changes may in some instances present a more difficult challenge than implementing them in the first place. It is very important. If you want to work in creating and managing change in the future, at first, let me ask you, is there anybody here want to be a change manager, a professional change manager in the future or not? Is there any students here to love change managing, a professional? Every organization needs a change manager. Okay, we will employ you. Is there anybody here who wants to be a change manager in the future or not? All of you only want to manage the change in your own organization. Okay, Kenneth. You want to be a change manager. If, for example, after 5 years, I will visit you and ask you what's your profession. So now, Kenneth, you say, I'm a change manager. I don't have any specific organization, any specific industry. My industry is managing the changes in other organizations. Okay. As we talk now, the more difficult part of change management is not creating the change. The more difficult, the more complicated. We will talk about it very in a vast area of concepts in the next minutes. But why it is here said that more difficult challenge than implementing them in the first place? Why it is more complicated, more difficult, more challenging? How do you think, Kenneth, as a future change manager, as a professional man in managing the changes in other organizations, why we said sustaining and maintaining the created change is more difficult than creating the change? How do you think? What is your theory about it? What is your idea about it?
My idea is that the reason why it can be difficult is because you can't do it by yourself. I think like you need other people that have the same vision as you to make a drastic change.
You have this difficulty also in creating change. When
Yes.
you want to creating a change, when it is called change, it is called change when the other people's vision is different from you. Because of that, we call it change. If are the same, it is not the change. When it is called change, when my vision of life, my vision, organizational vision, my goal setting is different from my relatives, as co-workers, as family members, as social society, community members, other people. So it is the same problem at the first. In all areas of change management, you have some different and oppositional aspect. But in the book says that keeping the change created previously is more difficult or more complicated than creating the change itself. How do you think about the new aspects, new problems in keeping a change created? Anybody else? I don't need your scientific thinking. I need your thinking. It is not important. Yeah, Luisa.
One aspect could be that people fall back into their old habits. So even if they started to change, they like the old way better, or it's more comfortable for them, or they might not even think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And if
Why people want to go back to their old habits? Why?
it's more automatic by now, it's easier to do. They don't have to think about it. Yeah, it's easier.
Is it their comfort zone?
Yeah, definitely. And also just not thinking about it. It's a habit, and to change a habit, you have to do it for a long time until it's your new habit, or often.
Thank
And
you. Other
if
things? Other things? No, Luisa, is there anything else that you think it is the cause to going back to their primary states? One is going to comfort zone. It is familiar with myself, with other people, to go to the familiar zone. It is called comfort zone. Anything else? It is one good reason. Other things?
just character-wise, or also external, or it could be, for example, also financial issues. So it's too expensive, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
It turns out to be expensive, and then they have to go back because they can't afford it anymore.
Mm-hmm. Financial problems, yes. As Chini has said, that unexpected features, unexpected factors in the future. We haven't counted all the factors. We haven't seen all the factors, influential factors in the area of change. Anything else? Anybody else? Nobody? No idea? The young brains, the young managers. I need your young brains, not your young knowledge, because never knowledge is never young. Every knowledge after 2 to 5 years is old, every type of knowledge. So we need your brain, your mindset, not your knowledge. Knowledge is for Wikipedia. You can find everything in the internet. Initiative decay is failure of change to be sustained. Please remember this good phrase, initiative decay or evaporation effect. It is very good phrase to know for a manager, for a leader, for a change manager. One of the great, good conceptual phrases, initiative decay or evaporation effect, improvement evaporation effect. Okay. Top 10 factors to initiative decay. 1. The initiators and drivers move on. 2. Accountability for development has become diffuse. 3. Knowledge and experience with new practices are lost through staff turnover. 4. As Luisa said, all habits are important with recruits from less dynamic organizations. 5. The issues and the pressures that trigger the initiative are no longer visible. 6. New managers want to drive their own agendas. 7. Powerful stakeholders are using counter-implementation tactics to block progress. 8. The pump priming funding runs out. 9. Other priorities come on stream, diverting attention and resources. And 10. Staff at all levels suffer initiative fatigue, enthusiasm for change falters. 1. The initiator and drivers move on. Managers who have been successful at implementing change may be more interested in moving on to the next change challenge than staying around for a period of relative stability. In addition, experienced and successful change agents may be sought by other divisions or organizations which have other novel change agendas to progress. It can be difficult to turn down promotion opportunities such as these. Some people, not everybody, some people loves challenging. What's the meaning of challenge? What is the difference between challenge and problem? What is the managerial meaning of challenge? Is there anybody here to love challenge for his or her organization? Is there anybody here a challenge lover? Who loves challenge here? Kenneth. Why? And what's the meaning of managerial meaning of challenge? In an organization, what does it mean? Challenge. And what is the difference between challenge and problem?
For me, I just think for my personal life, I've just been accustomed to being drawn to the struggle a little bit. So I think like challenge is a good thing. It's an opportunity to just overcome any obstacle, and then it helps your mind become stronger than before the challenge. So that's what I think.
You see obstacles in challenges?
Yes.
You love overcoming obstacles?
I do.
Don't you afraid of failure? Do you think sometimes you cannot overcome the obstacles? It is not a good feeling.
Because for me, if I think about the possibility of failing, then I'm already out of the challenge. I'm already out of the fight. So if I fail, I know that like me being prepared for the challenge wasn't the
Define failure. Define failure. How
not
do you
being able to
failure?
accomplish what I want.
Oh.
So once you put your all into something, and then what if you fail doing that? But you put in the work, you can't really. It's not as disappointing as if like you're not prepared for it. If that makes any sense.
Is there anybody agree with Kenneth? Agree, not disagree. Who is agree with Kenneth that failure is not too bad? It is only a desire, but not desirable outcome. It is undesirable. Luisa, are you agree with Kenneth?
I agree that it's desirable because otherwise you can't move on.
Mm-hmm. So sometimes failure will stop you. Sometimes with failure you cannot move on.
Yeah, but there's always often a different way that you can go.
Aha. Is it the opportunity in a failure to switch or shift the way or feedback? Is it the same thing we call it challenge, an opportunity for growth, not a problem? Challenge, managerial definition of challenge is this: opportunity for growth. And why growth? Because of failure. Why failure? Because as Luisa said, you know that you should switch, you should change your way. And how do you manage the pain of failure? Is there anybody here not to experience pain when failure occurs? Is there anybody here not to experience any pain when failure occurs? Or no, failure always has the pain, as the pain has a vital effect. It's very good for failure to have pain. Why? Pain has an alarming, a warning sign that you should change your way. No pain, no gain. If you want to gain something, okay, you should handle, not tolerate. You should manage and handle your pain. And one of the greatest sources of pain is failure. Failure, pain, better management, better outcome, better gains. Because of that, the failure is the primary step of all types of successes, all types of successes. It is not a model, it's a reality for every human being who wants at least to be a businessman or businesswoman. If you cannot handle your failures, if you cannot handle your bankruptcies, you will not be a good or a successful businesswoman or businessman. Sorry, self-management is the first step of every type of business, self-management. Without that, you will die so soon under the pressure of business, very soon. You should manage yourself as self. Self-management is the basic part of every type of management. Okay. Accountability for development has become diffuse. We are talking about top 10 factors, initiative decay. The responsibility for driving change is normally, but not always clear, with formal change or project management roles, often accompanied by steering groups, task forces, and implementation teams. Once the changes are in place and operational, those individuals and groups return to their normal roles. There are change managers, but organizations tend not to appoint sustainability managers, just who is accountable for ensuring the changes are now embedded. That they become the new norm is often unclear. Please be cautious about it. Very, very cautious about it. When you create a change, when you go home and sleep in a serenity, in calm, for example, after 1 year, when it has become a norm in your organization. Don't forget it. When change has happened in your organization, that everybody in your organization doesn't look at it as a change. Look at it as a new norm, but norm is very ordinary. After that, you can say, yes, change has happened and sustained and maintained, and it is from the context of our organization. Before that, you are trying to make the changes in your organization mature. Before that, it is immature. It is not mature changes. Knowledge and experience with new practice are lost through staff turnover. Change initiatives that involves new skills and knowledge are usually supported by staff training and development programs. Change needs new skills, new training, new thinking models, new emotional and feeling patterns, and new behavioral procedures. These are the main elements of every type of change. Everything is new. Because of that, we call it change. Except of that, it is the previous norms of your organization, of your life, of your family, everything you want to create change in it. So everyone who is going to be affected will be invited to attend these programs, creating a critical mass of participation for training sessions. It is very important, critical mass. However, as individuals subsequently leave and are replaced, it may be difficult to repeat those development sessions for small numbers of participation. The knowledge that is lost when a staff leaves is therefore not replaced. It is very important. I don't remember that Magic Johnson or one of the other basketball players has said, what you call it failure, I call it unfinished business. What you call it failure, I call it unfinished business. And when you look at your personal life, you find that a lot of failures, a lot of undesired outcomes you have in your life, honestly, they are not undesired outcome. They are unfinished business. the work you haven't finished because of procrastination, because of time management. More important than everything, because of stress management. You have lost a lot of works unfinished and you call them our failure, but they are not our failures. They are unfinished business. This topic is talking about this, that when training is replaced with other staffs, with other employees, other co-workers, okay, the change is not harmonized between all members of an organization. And after that, people want to come back to their previous habitual states, familiar states, which is called comfort zone. Old habits are important with requests from less dynamic organizations, less dynamic. I have a primary question. How an organization cannot be a dynamic being? We call an organization, we look at an organization as a being. How can an organization not be a dynamic being? Is there any static organization? What is the meaning of dynamic in the phrase of dynamic organization? Can you see an organization which is not dynamic, which is not moving forward? Is dynamic is meant moving forward? Is dynamic is meant progressive, Lisa?
I would say dynamic means being flexible and adapting to the changing circumstances and also therefore moving forward. And I would say there are companies that don't do all that and they just stay the same, and then most of the time they go out of business.
So the main feature of dynamic in an organization, as you say, is flexibility and adaptation.
Yeah, one part.
Because of that, it is the living being. An organization is a living being, not the rigid, not the other people, other students. Is there anything new to define a dynamic organization? Luisa said it indicates the flexibility and to adaptability of an organization to the changing states of real world. Luisa said this because of that, it is called dynamic. We see an organization as a dynamic being. Are there features which can we consider as dynamic for an organization or not? Flexibility, adaptation.
I guess to piggyback on that, I'll say organizations that are always looking for better, who believe there is a better way to do things, is a dynamic organization.
It is progressive. It is new ideas, making better and better and better. Sometimes changes are external. A dynamic organization has a good power to adapt the organization with the new changing state, external changing state. Okay, that's Luisa said. Sometimes it is not about the external. When game players have a good phrase, so-called higher score and higher score and higher score. Sometimes they are competing with themselves, not with the other competitions. It is good. Getting better and getting better and getting a new version of ourselves, new version of the same organization, not external, internal. So we have flexibility, adaptation, and constant improvement. As we discussed in chapter, organization usually change in response and combination of internal problems, external environmental challenges, and new opportunity. Internal, external, and new changes or new chances. Those triggers, however, may not be durable. The problems are solved, the challenges are addressed, the opportunities are developed. The rationale for change can thus fade with the triggers and again lead to initiative decay. Is there any phrase, something like, for example, fatigue of change? Do you think the change can create fatigue in an organization or even in yourself? Have you had any experience for fatigue of change in some part of life? You don't love to have any change. You are so tired of progression of advancement or not. You have a constant and never ending improvement. Do you have any problem, any experience for fatigue of change, for fatigue of growth, for fatigue of development in a period of time? Or no, you are always in a stage of constant and never ending improvement? When we are before, for example, 65 years old, before that, you are not considered as old age. 35 to 65 is called middle age, midlife. So, good, hopeful to the future students. Nobody has experienced fatigue of change and fatigue of growth here. That's good. But you should know that it's a symptom of psychological tired. It is called neurosis or neurosis. It is called fatigue of mind is called neurasthenia. Neurasthenia, N-U-N-E-U-R-O-S, neurasthenia, T-A-N-N-I-A, something like it. Neurasthenia or psychasthenia. Psychasthenia, it is the fatigue of mind or fatigue of, for example, psychological activity. I am so tired from growth, from development. Some people feels it at midlife and they don't want to have any progression in their life. Sometimes, not always, sometimes organizations and organizational managers will experience this type of fatigue. Because of that, a manager should always consider himself or herself at the first ranking of his or her caring. Self-care is the most important part of every type of caring, especially in the managerial or leadership parts. New managers want to drive their own agendas. It is another factor to initiative decay. For personal satisfaction, visibility, and reputation, newly appointed managers often want to appear to be innovative and energetic and to make a mark on their new organizations. This means enhancing their careers by designing and implementing their own change initiatives. Counting with work that was started by others is less interesting and satisfying and could limit one's promotion prospects. It is a sign of good system design. It's a sign of good system design that to have the permanent principles for a system. If we changing a manager, by switching a manager, leaving a manager and coming a new manager, the system targets, the system procedures, the system method will change. It is not a good system. System should not be related to the managers. Managers should be related to the systematic thinking. Because of that, in a lot of countries, especially in third world countries in Middle East and North Africa, you see that when, for a company, for example, a new manager comes, all the systems will change. After 2 years, another new manager, again, all the systems will change. Because of that, you see not a lot of evolutions, you see a lot of revolutions. Revolution is something different from evolution. Evolution is very gradual, systematic, predictable, and goal-oriented. But revolution is something else. Pay attention to this point. When you want to create a system, every type of system, organizational system, family system, economic system, social systems even, You should have good, rigid foundations for your system. It is called ideology. It is called worldview. It is called doctrine. It is called principles, everything you want to call it. It shows that what are the main and basic parts of this system. What are the thought schools of this system? New management has only new method of managing, not new principles, not new mindset to the system. Because of that, it says that sometimes new managers want to stop the previous changes and create a reputation for themselves by creating new changes. So they will destroy the previous changes that have been created so new. They haven't been a norm of the organization. They are new. They are repeating to become a norm of organization. Powerful stakeholders are using counter-implementation tactics to block progress. I have a question. Stakeholders are an internal factor in an organization or external factor? If you are thinking about the stakeholders of an organization, of a company, as a manager, you consider their influence on the organization as an external influence or no, as an internal influence. How do you think about the role and influence and impact of stakeholders on your managerial decisions? External or internal? And why? Whatever you want to answer, say me your reason.
I would say most of the time it is external because stakeholders are customers and other people, but I know sometimes stakeholders can also be employees, which would be internal. So, but most of the time I would say it's external.
So you see them as external factors. But they can have some pressure for stopping and for resistance to change. They are stakeholders, but they have their own influences on the change in an organization. Anybody else? Luisa said that they are external, but they are not so weak. They are external, but sometimes their power is not so weak. They can have a powerful influence on the changing and continuing changing and maintaining the change in our organization. Other students? David, you are so silent today. You don't have any habit not to hear your voice.
Yeah, sometimes it's good to be silent. We just observe and listening people.
Okay.
But yeah, in the case of the stakeholders, I think, yeah, I don't know, he could be like internal factor too, because like he has a voice. He's part of the organization, no? At some point. I don't know.
Do you consider stakeholders as a part of organizations?
If I consider stakeholders a part of organization, I would consider them as a, yeah, I would say yes, yes.
They are a part of organization.
Okay.
Yes. Other students? Successful implementations does not always silence the power brokers. They may remain in post, and if they don't welcome to the change, they may wait for opportunity to undermine the changes. This becomes easier if factor one applies. The initiators are no longer there to protect their changes. The pump priming funding runs out. Many changes are allocated additional funding in order to support the implementation costs. This can include the temporary appointment of a specialist staff or external consultants and the cost of training programs to provide new skills and knowledge. As those sources are consumed and the temporary appointments and training come to an end, support for the changes weakened and initiative decay becomes more likely. It is about the financial aspects that Chinia talked about it. And other priorities come on stream, diverting attention and resources. Most organizations today don't suffer a shortage of internal and external pressure for change. As other urgent problems and opportunities arise, the focus inevitably shifts away from the past pressures and the changes that those prompted. If those past problems have indeed been addressed, then it may be appropriate for attention and resources to move to more urgent issues. However, this will generate problems if the shift in focus to new priorities simply recreates the situation that past changes were implemented to address. In related to resources, in every aspect of your life, we have talked about it before. In relative to resources, what is the major problem? For example, financial resources, time resources, energy resources, organizational resources. In relative to resources, what is the main problem or what is the main skills a manager should know? For example, you have 24 hours a day as a time resource. What is the most important thing you should know for planning your time, for timing at 24 hours? How can you plan your daily time based upon your goals, your priorities? Priorities are the most important determining factor for planning your time, for example, in every aspect of resources. For example, for your money, if you don't know your first ranking priorities, you can be under pressure at every aspect of your life. Why? Because you cost your money in the ways, in the objects that it is not necessary, it is not so urgent. And after that, when you come to your urgent issues, you don't have any good and enough money. So setting your priorities right is one of the greatest skills every manager should know. On the other hand, if I want to describe the management in one sentence, management is the art of creating priorities. It is the basic part of every type of management, in your family, in your community, in yourself, even in yourself. In your own management, you should know your priorities about your time, about your money, about your energy, about your love, about your family, about everything which is related to you. The basic. There's nothing more important than setting your priorities right. Nothing more important. After that, everything is located on your priorities. Before priorities, there's nothing more important. If you don't know your priorities, how do you want to share your resources, to divide your resources? And staff at all levels suffer initiative fatigue, enthusiasm for change falters that we talk about it. Praiseworthy and blameworthy failures. Such a good phrase here. Praiseworthy and blameworthy failures. What does it mean? Is there any praiseworthy failure? A lot of failures are blameworthy, yes. It's good for blaming yourself, for blaming other people for creating and ending the results of failure. But is there any praiseworthy failure? Also, we know, but I want you to talk about it. As the manager, as the coach, psychotherapy, counseling, management, even leadership, at the best part, at the highest role, we can call you coaches. Coaches is greater and more influential than everybody, every other body you know in yourself, in your life. So as the change coaches, change managers, how do you think about the praiseworthy failures? The failure of change is not always a problem that needs to be solved. Sometimes it is not necessary to solve your problems. Sometimes it is an occasion for learning. Do you remember the scientific definition of learning? I talked about it in the first sessions. Learning is the permanent, relatively permanent changes derived from rehearsal or experience. So when you are talking about learning, you are talking about changes. If you experience something, but doesn't have any change after that, no learning has occurred, no learning. When it is called learning, that you can see some changes after that. What type of changes? Changes derived from rehearsal. For example, studying the books is rehearsal, studying the mathematics is rehearsal, or experience. Because of that, a lot of people has a lot of experiences, but doesn't have any type of learning. Why? Because any type of changes hasn't been occurred. No changing, only experience. Stupid people are like that. Repeat and repeat and repeat the same experiences, the same wrong ways, and also the same wrong gains. Because of that, a lot of people has a lot of experience, but doesn't learn anything. Why? Because they don't want to change. Absolutely. A productive failure is one which provides an organization with a valuable lesson. How do you think about it? Can we have some lessons from our failure in an organization? In private life, yes, we can have. Productive failure. How?
I mean, the same way.
A courageous man like Kenneth says, yes, we can have some productive failure. How? It is so painful.
No pain, no gain.
Again, yeah, productive failure can have valuable lessons. A learning organization treats occasional failure as natural and as opportunity to develop better understanding and to improve future performances. One of the things I have seen in my personal experiences with managers, that athletic managers with a history of professional sport practicing, have a very different attitude to organization. Why? Because they know that the pain and the failure is a good sign for improving faster and better than previous times. Managers with a history of sport practicing as a professional or as amateur, it is not important. They are familiar with pain. They are familiar with breaking. They are familiar with failure.
They tend to be more resilient, no?
Well,
they tend to be more resilient.
Yes, yes. The concept here is resilience. Resilience is very important. Calm down and stand up again. Calm down and stand up again. A learning organization treats occasional failures, not overall failure, as natural. It's very natural. It is some laboring a child at the end of the pregnancy. It has a lot of pain, yes, but it is natural. And as an opportunity to develop better understanding and to improve future performance. Sometimes, I think 2 or 3 years ago, I worked with the traders in the stock market, traders as a psychological aspect of trading. One of the things I learned, I taught them was love your failures. Every successful trader in forex market, in stock market, knows that he or she should love his or her failure, because in the failure, in the wrong trading, they will learn their new strategy for trading. In the wrong trading, they can find new strategies. Because of that, they love their failure. They know every failure in trading in stock market is a good view, has a good strategy for future trading and gaining more and more and more. Because of that, unproductive success, a change that has gone well, but nobody quite knows why. It's very interesting. You have productive failure, you have unproductive success. It is success, but unproductive. What does mean? A change that has gone well, it is success. But nobody quite knows why. We must be doing something right. A lot of successful people are confused about the causes and courses of their success. They didn't know very clear that how they have become successful. If you ask them, they said, God helps me, opportunity was not too bad, they have no strategy. And they cannot repeat again in the future because of that. It is called unproductive success. Yes, it is success, but unproductive. Nothing has been added to the successful man or woman in the course of success, in the pathway of success. To build such a learning culture, so you see that the major word in creating change in an organization is learning culture. If you have some failures, but you learn a lot from your failures, it is good. It is productive learning. If you have sometimes some tips of success, but you don't have any learning from that success, it is unproductive success. Success or failure is not important. Learning culture and learning is important. Why? Because after learning, change will happen. After learning, change will happen. So it is the line of progress. At first, experience, after that, learning, after that, change. Learning without experience, it is impossible. Change without learning, it is impossible. You cannot have any change without any learning, and you cannot have any learning without any experience. But you can have a lot of experience without learning, yes. You see, in old people, they have passed a life, a time life, by they have a lot of experiences, but they don't have any learning, a new learning from their experiences. So they are old, but they are not mature. They are not mature. A lot of old people are not mature, are not wise, are not sage. They are ordinary people. So in your organization, the major important part is learning culture. Experimentation should be encouraged, and failures, including near misses, need to be detected and subjected to an analysis that looks beyond the obvious. It is also necessary to avoid making the fundamental attribution error. Please, 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 after class, the previous session I talked about also, after class, study this phrase, fundamental attribution error. It helps you to widen your perspective about every aspect of human attribution, about the human judgment about the others. It is also necessary to avoid making the fundamental attribution error, which means blaming individuals and ignoring the context in which they were working. Your focal point in judgment based upon fundamental attribution error is on the individual, not in the context. For example, sometimes we think some people are very generous. They are very giving people, giving money, giving time, giving kindness. And you don't consider the context, in which context they are giving their money to other people's. In loneliness, no, in a crowd. They say, yes, he or she is very generous man or generous woman. And after lonely, they don't give any money to other people. It is fundamental attribution error. Focus not on the context, on the individuals. Okay. We can have 10 minutes of break, and after that, come back to class, and we will continue the course. Okay, we have here a spectrum of reasons for failure, which is deviance, inattention, lack of ability, process inadequacy, task challenge, process complexity, uncertainty, hypothesis testing, and exploratory testing. What is deviance or deviance? An individual chooses to violate a prescribed process or practice. Inattention, an individual inadvertently deviates from specifications. Lack of ability, another reason for failure. An individual doesn't have the skills, conditions, or training to execute a job. It's very popular. Process inadequacy, a component individual adhere to a prescribed but faulty or incomplete process. It is process inadequacy. Task challenge is another reason for failure. An individual faces a task too difficult to be executed reliably every time. Or process complexity, a process composed of many elements breaks down when it encounters novel interactions. Uncertainty is very important and also very popular. A lack of clarity about future events causes people to take seemingly reasonable actions that produce undesired results. And hypothesis testing. Hypothesis is also one of the basic parts of science. Producing theories, it is hypothesis testing. An experiment conducted to prove that an idea or design with success failed. And exploratory testing, an experiment conducted to expand knowledge and investigate a possibility leads to an undesired result. These are the spectrum of reasons for failure. And 5 practices building a psychologically safe environment in which to learn from failure. We are talking about the elements that create an environment. In that environment, when you have some failures, when you have some mistakes, when you have some trial and errors, it will end to productive failure, not unproductive success, not unproductive failure. It is to end to productive failure. You can have some good learning from those failures. We have some psychological settings, psychological basic principles to creating a good atmosphere, a productive atmosphere to learn from our failures. At first, frame the work accurately. People need a shared understanding on the kinds of failures that can be expected to occur in a given work context, routine production, complex operation, or innovation, and why openness and collaboration are important for surfing and learning from them. Accurate framing detoxifies failure. It is very important that in your organization, it is something like parenting. If your child knows how and what extent he or she can have some failure, have some errors with no punishment. There are some failures for learning, not failures for punishment, not failures for as mistake, as intentional mistake. It is very important. It's like, for example, riding a bicycle. It's very obvious, very natural that you expect from your child that have some failures in riding a bicycle with no punishment. So the work frame definition should be so accurate for your members, for your co-workers, for your employees. Accurate framing detoxify failure, which is detoxification. They cannot assume their failures at the toxified actions. And embrace messengers. Love your failures. Those who come forward with bad news, questions, concern, or mistake should be rewarded than the shots. Celebrate the value of the news first, and then figure out how to fix the failure and learn from it. In the environment that the dominant emotion is fear, everything will be hidden. Fear kills every type of courage, kills every type of expressiveness, every type of assertiveness. If in an organization the dominant emotion is fear, we cannot be informed from the mistakes in your organization. So embrace the messenger, not the message. It is very important. And acknowledge limits. Being open about what you don't know, mistakes you have made, and one you cannot get done alone will encourage others to do the same. In psychology and psychotherapy, sometimes it is called self-disclosure or genuineness or authenticness of psychotherapists, of therapists. What does it mean? It means that when I, as a psychotherapist, I, as a psychologist, I, as a manager, I, as a leader, I, as a parent, say, yes, these are my limitations. These are my mistakes. These are my errors. Other people's, other co-workers, other employees, other family members, other friends, don't look at me as an idol. I'm not an idol. They talk to me, yes, we have such problems also. It is acknowledge limits. And invite participation. It is another psychological factor that can create a safe environment for accepting the errors in your company, your organization. Ask for observations and ideas and create opportunity for people to detect and analyze failures and promote intelligent experiments. Inviting participations helps diffuse resistance and defensiveness. It can kill all the defensiveness in your company. And the fifth one is set boundaries and hold people accountable. It is very regular as a first act. A lot of managers do this at the first ranking and get the other principals free. They don't do anything except of this. That at first they set boundaries and hold people accountable, and after that say goodbye to their employees, and you are accountable for every mistake in the organization. And after that, they have some loyal co-workers, they have some fearful co-workers, they don't have any courageous employee to talk about the errors, about the mistake, about the managerial errors sometimes, and they live in a dark environment of knowledge in their organization. Paradoxically, People feel psychologically safer when leaders are clear about what acts are blameworthy. And there must be consequences. But if someone is punished or failed, tell those directly and indirectly affected what happened and why it warranted blame. It doesn't mean that you should appreciate every type of failure. Some failures are very harmful, very harming. It's correct. Some failures are blameworthy. It's correct. Some failures, not all failures. But your coworkers, your friends, your people near you should know what and why some failures are blameworthy. They should know not your order. They should know your logic behind these categorization to blameworthy failures or, for example, talking about the praiseworthy failures. Actions to sustain change. Redesign role, redesign reward systems, link selection decisions to change objective, act consistently with advocate action. It is walk the talk. Your inner and outer words should be the same. Encourage voluntary acts of initiative, measure progress, celebrate en route, and fine tune. At first, it is redesign role as an action to sustain change. We are talking about the solutions. First, redesign roles, which require new behaviors and attitude change, will then follow. It is difficult to revert to past behavior with a new formal role definition, which is one of a network of similarity redesigned roles. Sustainability is not guaranteed by this approach, but it is significantly encouraged. We are talking about the change. We are talking about the changing the habitual behavior, habitual mindset, habitual actions, behaviors, habitual emotion sometimes. So it needs time and effort. So you should redesign the roles of changing. Your roles as the change managers, other people as the changing objects, and other parts of change components. Reward system has its roots in your brain. There's a circuit in your brain, so-called reward circuit or reward system, reward and punishment system. It is very important, very, very important. Shaping all the behaviors in your brain is related to your reward and punishment system. All the behaviors, all the emotions. Even some scientists believe that shaping addiction and shaping substance abuse and shaping every type of dependency is related to the reward and punishment system in your brain. So management should implement a carefully designed evaluation and reward system. Reward and punishment should be based upon the evaluation. Evaluation should be based upon the assessment, gathering information, data collection, and data analysis. After data gathering, gathering information, it should be evaluated to the good or bad. It's sometimes of judgment. And after that, it should be reward for good things and punishment for bad things to ensure that the best team players get the goodies. It is very important. If all the employees, all the team members are at the same position with higher or lower efficiency, you don't have any reward system, not punishment system, but reward system for rewarding the best team members. You are not a good manager. You are not a wise manager. It is important to ensure that the best team players get the goodies. Whatever gets reward will get done, and whatever is not rewarded, such as pre-change working practices, will not get done. It's again very important that you should know what activities are related to your changing plan And what activities? Yes, they are good. They are activity. Your team members are very active, but their activity is not related to the changing plan. It should not be rewarded. Only the activities related to the changing plan, not to the changing. Because sometimes people think that there, yes, we are helping the change created. Sorry, we have a changing plan. We have an action plan for creating our change, desired change. You should not work as a team member on your own views. You should work on the changing plan defined for creating the desired change. I, for example, as a leader, want to create in my system, in my organization. So changing the reward system can thus contribute significantly to sustainability by removing the financial motivation to return to old behaviors. It is very important. And rewards should include public recognition of behaviors that are consistent with the desired change. Why public recognition? Because you are working with a team. You are working with an organization. As a manager, as a leader, you cannot talk, for example, only to one person, one employee, one coworker. You are talking about the organizational development and change in all levels of organization. You want to make the change after sometimes as a habit, as a routine in your organization. So it is very important. Management failure to respond to behavior that is in direct opposition to the challenge undermines the credibility of their program. It is some smart managers to know, to be aware about the changes, desired changes and undesired changes. Link selection decisions to change objectives. Staff selection and promotion processes can be subtle but powerful ways in which to embed and sustain assumptions and values to change and to maintain the organization's culture. It is very important. You should have some expert staff, some expert team members that they are so familiar, so expert in creating change with the change subject. They are familiar, they're expert in the change subject. If you have some only loyal members in your team, that they have a good and a higher loyalty level, but they don't have any specific knowledge about the change area you want to create in your organization, you will not be a good and a successful change manager. Why? Because they are good people, but they are not efficient people. They are not expert people. So because of that, for creating every type of change, you should choose your expert staff. You should have some promotion processes. To support organizational changes with selection, a number of organizations have adopted value-based recruitment systems, which seek to select staff whose motives, attitudes, and values support what the organization is trying to achieve. You can see this type of giving the new staff, giving the recruitment system for hiring system or recruitment system for new staff is very regular in great organizations. And you can find this model nowadays in a lot of organizations who want to create change. And at first, before everything, they are talking and they are thinking and they are finding and selecting expert out of the organization people or in the hidden layers of their organization that they are expert in the field of desired change. Walk the talk. It is very important. Walk the talk, act consistently with the advocated actions. This is a well-known cliche. However, senior management can seriously jeopardize the sustainability of change if their words and actions are interpreted by employees as signaling we don't really mean it. It is very important. You should be the symbol of the change you want to create in your organization. You should be the symbol of the change you want to create in your organization. Walk the talk is mean this. If your subordinates, if your co-workers, if your employees think that you are not at the same direction of change, it is not a lie, but it doesn't work because you are the leader. Other people are your followers. If you don't know, you don't accept internally your values, it is not your values. It is other things that you want only for your organization. So you are not the leader of organization. You are a thinker and at the best time a good manager. In other words, if the top team doesn't support this change, why should we? Personnel co-workers say to themselves, why should we? Little is more damaging to the credibility of a change program than the lack of consistency between the statements and behaviors of the change advocates. Even if management did not mean to send negative signal, unintentional hypocrisy can be equally damaging. It is very, very detailed and very subtle assessment of managerial behaviors. Pay attention to your behavior, pay attention to your actions, pay attention to your detailed action in your company or organization when you are a change manager. A change manager is something like a prophet, something like they see you like a god in your organization. You are the symbol of the changes you want to create in your organization. And at the higher level, for example, for a movement, for a social movement, you are indeed a god of your movement. You can see and you can study the great leaders' biography and especially autobiography. They talk to you about their internal conflict between their thinking and sometimes their leadership skills. And finally, they have some walk the talk in their thinking and acting at the same page, at the same line. They have act and they have thought. It is valuable to have many change agents in our organization and not just the usual small elite team. Encourage voluntary acts of initiative. It is important. Vision and strategy should be communicated in a manner that creates buy-in and attracts a growing volunteer army. I love this phrase for creating change. You should always have a volunteer army for creating change in your life, in your organization, in your thinking, and other parts of your life. Volunteer army are the people who support you and your organization and your idea and your movement, everything you want to create in your life, in the world. Volunteer army are people that out of charge, they support you and your ideas and your actions, and they help you to progress in your ideas, in your action, especially in your organization. In encouraging change, the most effective senior manager specify the general direction in which they want the company to move, and left the details of specific changes to be decided closer to the action lower down the organization. Change is more likely to become embedded if those at the operational level are supported when they develop for themselves the specific changes that they believe appropriate for their local circumstances. You should not be worried about the change process in your organization. The very basic concept of work division of work, here is also used, but it is not about the work. It is about the division of change management between different levels of management. You should divide the management. Measure progress. It is very important. We talked about the SMART goals before. Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely goals are the SMART goals. So it is very important for you, for everybody to know how can we measure our progress in every aspect of life. Sometimes you have reached to the end of your match in the life. and you have a good score, but you don't have any measure criteria for measurement your success, and you are trying and trying and trying, it is extra trying. It is not necessary to have some trying like this. Why we need progress measurements? Metrics and milestones are fundamental to tracking the progress of change, highlighting the need for any corrective actions. What gets measured can significantly affect how people act because measurement signals the importance of that aspect of performance. But kinds of measures, results measures and process measures. Result measure says, how will we know that we have achieved our objectives? It is the measurement of results. It is at the end of the part of progress. How we gained our desired results or not. But process measure says, how will we know that we are doing what is necessary to achieve those objectives, those goals, and how plans may need to be adjusted. These are about the process measures. And we have a measures battery, some tools for measurements of progress. A balanced set of performance measures should include leading measures, lagging measures, internal measures, external measures, and cost-based measures. Leading measures which reveal the immediate results of a new initiative, such as changes in processing time or time to market for new products. These are leading measures. And after that, it is lagging measures. Lagging is such as financial performance or corporate image that can take time to become apparent. And after that are internal measures, focusing on intra-organizational processes and efficiencies. Intra, it is insight between the components inside an organization. When you say intra, it is mean inside. When you say inter, it is outside. For example, we say interpersonal communication and intrapersonal communication. Interpersonal communication is the communication between you and other people, interpersonal. But intrapersonal is mean communication between you and yourself, your feelings, your actions, your thoughts. It is intrapersonal. And external measures, such as the perspectives of stakeholders, customers, and suppliers, and how the organization compares with benchmark competitors. It is external measures. And the final part of cost-based measures that are directly financial, and non-cost measures such as market share and brand image. And celebrate and root and other action to sustain change. It is very important. Months or years can pass before the outcomes of change initiated are fully realized. A lot of times, changes are a long-term process, a time-consuming process. It needs a lot of delayed gratification, not immediate gratification, not instant gratification. So because of that, because a lack of clear evidence of success strengthens the views of those who initially resisted the change. They ask you, so give me the evidence of change. What are you doing? You are using only the money of the company, the financial pressure for a company, and you are wasting our time and money and efforts. What are the evidence of the successful changes? And it is like agriculture. You need to pass some seasons to reach the end of the seasons and have some good fruits in your basket. Meanwhile, in this time, you should have talked to your, for example, stakeholders on other people's. A lack of clear evidence of success strengthens the views of those who initially resisted the change. It is often the case that some tangible benefits can be identified at an earlier stage in the process. One of the accelerators of change is to celebrate significant short-term wins, quick wins, celebrating the early benefits, even they are relatively small in scale. It is very important. In the crowd psychology, in an organizational psychology, it is very important to show very, very little and short-term and quick wins. Sometimes we said that you should, for example, exaggerate them, even show off. It is very little and show it very great. Why? Because overcoming the primary, the initial change resistance. One of the, and celebrating, okay, the scale, recognizing and rewards those who are involved. Strengths are the credibility of the program and helps to weaken the skepticism. If successes are effectively publicized and widely understood, can act as a catalyst for further changes. You need to some time, you need a duration of time duration to persist on your program for creating change. Meanwhile, you need some strength and some empowering yourself and your program. A further implication of focus on celebrating en route concern the allocation of resources to priority areas. Those areas that need the most urgent attention may provide the best opportunity to demonstrate clear and immediate benefits, which can then be celebrated as a short-term win. Failure to establish those priorities at an earlier stage in the change process may be a direct cause of change failure. It is very smart action, very smart action. And highly recommended to you that use these operations in this part, celebrate en route, in your private and personal life. It is not only related to your organizational life or to your organization. You can use it in your daily life for your partner, for your child, for your co-workers, for your friend. When you want to create a change, a great change in your life or in their life, it is very important showing a combination of long-term wins, long-term gains, and short-term and quick wins. People will get it free, will not continue the process of change if it is very far. Totally, people are not so patient. They don't have any good patience for creating the long-term change. So you should break it down, the change wins, the quick wins, the short wins, for them to the short times. Every step, next step, next step, next step. Finally, it's like eating a pizza. You don't eat a pizza totally at a one shot. Slice, 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 slice. And fine-tune is, despite careful advanced planning, most change initiatives do not unfold as anticipated, as Chiana talked about it at the first of the class. The need for corrective action is to be expected. Any problem is complete at the first stage. Any plan is complete at the first stage. Because of that, we are talking about the strategic planning. It is a strategic planning. It is dancing with the music of the future failures. You have a good dance, a good flexibility. Because of that, I asked, what is the meaning of dynamic in the phrase of dynamic organization? And Luisa said, it is at the first a flexible meaning. It means flexible organization. Because of that, you should tune yourself, your organizations, with the new data, with the new goals, to the final goals. You can change the immediate goals, immediate targets, but you are looking at the final change you want to create in your organization. The need for corrective action is to be expected. Why not? Making timely modifications in the light of experience will normally be more effective than attempting not to deviate from the plan. Problems arise for two main reasons. Building the plans as you fly. The implementation of change always involves doing something new. Because of that, we call it change. Something that has never been done before. A particular type of change program may, of course, have been implemented in another division or another organization, but that change will always be new here in this organization, in this division, at this time, for these reasons, with those sources affecting our staff. And second one, organizational changes are multifaceted, multidimensional, affecting many different factors that are themselves interlinked. It is therefore difficult to anticipate all of the cognitive effects or ripples that a change in one area will have elsewhere. Because of that, this time, this age is called age of information. Because the importance and the cost of lack of information is very high. More information, better planning, lower cost to recorrect and corrective actions. It is good, but the need for corrective action is always to be expected. And key system actions and cautions. Sustainability relies on local management judgment and on two main forms, preventive maintenance and developmental maintenance. We are talking about the maintenance of change in our organization. Preventive maintenance involves action to sustain the status quo, to keep new working practice operating as intended, to meet predetermined targets and objectives. And developmental maintenance involves continuing to adapt the changes to local circumstances in order to sustain an improvement trajectory, to exceed expectations, to meet higher targets. Preventive maintenance sustains changes. Developmental maintenance both sustains and builds on the benefit. When you are talking about the prevention, you are talking about the future scene, about the prediction of the future, next step. And you want to have some prevention and prediction. Based upon your prediction, you can have some prevention in every aspect of your life, your daily life, in your organizational, managerial role, or in your private life. More prediction, more prevention, why not? But developmental is something else. It is progressive, going forward, more benefits. Changes we can maintain the changes for gaining, for more gaining. It is not about the cost, it is talking about the benefits. When you are talking about the preventive maintenance, it is about the lowering the cost you have paid for your creating the change, or the lowering the cost you should pay for future maintaining the change. But when you are talking about the developmental maintenance, you are talking about the increasing the benefits from the changes you have created before. Sustainability actions and sustainability cautions. Define what sustainability means in your context. It is very important. Change is not basically related to the content or form. It is related to your context. Yes, what do you want to change? It is related to content. How do you want to create change? It is related to your form. But how do you want to maintain the change? It is related to the context. Some contents or some forms are maintained in some context, but they are not maintained in other contexts. It is related to your culture. It is related to your background. It is related to your organizational culture and other things which is included in the term of context. A static or a dynamic perspective on what time scales. Identify the factors that affect the sustainability of new method in your context. We are talking about the actions, sustainability actions. Determine what combination of factors can you control and adjust in order to increase the probability of sustaining change. You are not talking about the possibility, you are talking about the probability of change. You are talking about the probable possibility in the future for creating new changes or for corrective actions for your predetermined, in the past determined changes you have created in your organization. And you are talking about the failure points in the future of your changes. You are talking about the maintaining your changes, not failure. But failure has a good value for supporting the future of your change. Monitor the support conditions and implement an appropriate mix of preventing and developmental maintenance. We talk about it. And allow or encourage changes to decay when they no longer fit the context or when better methods become available. It is very important. Some people say that, no, I cannot go to the new type of changes because I have had a very high cost for these changes now we have. And just this time, the changes have become our normal life. We have now, again, we are familiar with the previous changes. Now they are not changed. They are our routine life. They are our daily life. Sometimes spending a lot of money, a lot of change, a lot of time for creating the change, sometimes create a change resistance for the future changes. Sometimes today changes are the major resources for the change resistance of the future. And what are the cautions? Don't defer sustainability planning, as some modes of development and change implementation will damage sustainability. Don't defer. Do not expect changes to survive because they are now working. Staff leave, resources are relocated. Now novel ideas become familiar. These are the cautions about change management and about change resistance and about change maintenance. Do not ignore the risk factors. Do not allow effort to sustain change to block the development of other good ideas. And finally, do not withdraw preventive and developmental maintenance as long as you wish the approach to be sustained. And words of warning, we have some words of warning here. It can be difficult to manage sustainability after a change has been successfully implemented. By then, it may be too late. Building sustainability into a change initiative from beginning provides no secure guarantees, but it is more likely to be an effective approach. However, there are a number of further factors about which the change manager needs to be aware. Expect some unanticipated outcomes. Be alert to the limitations of measures. Beware premature declaration of victory. Beware the escalation of commitment, very important, and recognize productive failure. At first, as the student says at the beginning of the session about the unanticipated outcomes, most change initiatives will generate unanticipated consequences unless the links between the changes and outcomes are controllable and predictable, which is honestly so rarely. It is so rare that you can find a very controlled and predictable line between the changes and the outcomes in the real world. Also, sometimes in mathematics, in risk study, in game theory, yes, we can do it. But in real world, it is so rare. The change management challenge is to respond in timely and appropriate ways to the unexpected, which on some occasions may be early warnings of more serious problems, requiring a combination of resilience and improvisation. Answering in a new way and personalized way to the unanticipated outcomes in the change process or in the process of sustaining change. Improvisation is meant. Be alert to the limitations of measures. We talk about the measurements the criteria for measure the change process and change progress. Assessing the effectiveness of change is complex and challenging. Premature measurement can also create problems. What does it mean? Celebrating short-term wins can be valuable. We talk about it, but measuring the overall success of a change in it should be related to the time scale over which benefits are expected to be delivered. It is very important. Sometimes premature evaluation, premature good evaluation rises the expectations of the people who are involved with the change process. We are not at the end of change process, but before the end stage of change process, people who are involved, they are hyper demanding for the outcome of change. It is called premature, before time, before the ending time, it is premature measurement. A focus on short-term gains and quick fixes can weaken the persistence that is often required into achieve gains that develop over a longer period. It is instant gratification, not delayed gratification. Remember that delayed gratification is the basic part of every type of great plans, great success, great leadership or management. If you don't have any patience to pass the course of the success, it is like eating fast food, so delicious, but with no quality. So delayed gratification in contrast with instant gratification is the most important part, especially in sustaining the change outcomes. We say Decay here or Cantor's law, it is about this part that we are talking about, required in order to achieve gains that develop over a longer period. Organizational change rarely flows in a linear fashion, and the outcomes tend to be shaped by the combination and interaction of multiple factors. It is something like the platforms of trading a stock market. Sometimes go downtrend, and after that it is anticipated to have an uptrend. So everything can look like a failure in the middle. Sometimes you think that, wow, we are going to the down, we are going to the failure part, but it is a curve. It is called J curve or Cantor's law. At times, change may appear to be progressing rapidly, while at other times it may appear to have stalled. In some instances, performance may deteriorate before it improves, as people learn how to adjust to and work with new structures, systems, procedures, and practices. They are learning the new procedures. Yes, efficiency may come down, and after that it will go up again. Why? Because in this period, we are leaving the previous educations, previous skills that we were so skillful, so master and in them, and we are gaining, we are learning new skills. We are not master, we are not very skillful. In this time, yes, the productivity of organization, even the productivity of persons come down. And after that, after being master in that course, in that skills, yes, again, it has come up. And this initial dip followed by an uptick in performance is known as the J curve. You see that this is like the alphabet J. This is also known as Cantor's law, which states that everything can look like a failure in the middle. Beware premature declaration of victory. It is very important. Embedding it is like in election for president in all countries. Sometimes we have premature declaration of victory. It is very harming and some type of illegal. In some countries like my country, it is illegal to talk about your victory before the formal announcement of your victory for a presidential election. Embedding and sustaining organization culture change can take a considerable amount of time, years in some cases. for any transformational change, not simple. John Kotter advises the change manager to never let up, keep learning from experience, and don't declare victory too soon. Transformational change. In other words, celebrate the wins, but do not declare overall victory. Until a change is firmly embedded, the possibility of a return to previous working practices will remain possible. Until the time that new change will become a routine in your organization. Before that, always there is a strong tendency to relapse, to go back to the primary state that was a starting point for creating change in your life, in your organization. After that, yes, it is new norm. When it is called norm, it is not change. It is your norm. It is your routine life. You have a lot of experience in your private life about this. There may be significant numbers of people who are hoping that the change will not succeed and that things will return to normal. Pay attention. A lot of people think that I wish, that we wish, the change will return to normal. They don't know that normals sometimes are not good, are not healthy, but normal. It is comfort zone. They are familiar with the normal. Ann Fisher uses the term vicious compliance to describe those who display support in public. They will nod and smile and agree with everything that you say, but are resentful of the change and are waiting for opportunity to return to old ways of working to which they remain committed. Okay, learners, next week is the last week. Now you have time for 50 minutes to take the quiz week 7. Please complete all your assignments for the next week. Nothing has been lost after that because I want to give your final grades and complete everything and work hard in this week and study hard about the book. And that's it. Any question you had, you can email in and I try to reply your emails as soon as possible. Now you can go to the week 7 quiz. Is there any question? Okay, have a good time and I am here also.
All right, bye guys.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good evening.
You too. Bye.